will be in order. Members will be at their seats. The clerk will open the roll. You may record your presence. Please rise and give your attention to the House Chaplain, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Representative Martin.
Let us pray. Father God, thank you for this day that you have given us. We are reminded of the great words of St. Francis of Assisi. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. And where there is sadness, joy. In your hands, we are instruments that can accomplish that which shape the future for greater good. Help us, as your instruments, to work together in harmony. This I pray. Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As every member has an opportunity to record his or her presence, the clerk will close the roll and take the attendance. The chair recognizes Representative Kim Kessinger on a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'm here to honor Blue Valley North football team and their representatives whose constituents feed into the Blue Valley North High School. I encourage you to come up here and join me. Blue Valley North High School is renowned for its academics, and for example, some achievements in the past year include 6 presidential scholar candidates, 4 perfect ACT scores, 16 National Merit semifinalists, 14 National Merit finalists, 2 National Hispanic Scholars, and Blue Valley North is home of the 2017 Kansas Teacher of the Year, Mr. Jason Sickle. It's also named as one of America's most challenging high schools the past 10 years by the Washington Post. And there have been many more academic accolades. This year has brought some unaccustomed football recognition to the school as the Blue Valley North Mustangs defeated 2-time defending champion Derby High School for the Kansas State 6A football championships. Now it was a wild ride to the championship as the Mustangs advanced to the title game with a 44-37 double overtime win over rival Blue Valley High School. My fellow Johnson County representative from the Blue Valley High School District is here to uphold his end of a friendly wager we had at the game, as evidenced by him wearing a Blue Valley North Championship shirt. He honors his bet. I like that. North captured the title by defeating Derby 49-42. And they became the first Blue Valley 6A school to take the title. Football championships are uncharted territory for Blue Valley North. When Coach Andy Sims took over as head coach in 2014, the team had only 1 total win in the previous 3 years. His first year as coach, Sims' team won 2 games. He is now here to accept our recognition for winning a state title. Others here today include players Graham Mertz, Miles Emery, Dylan Freeberg, Andrew Johnson, and Thatcher Robertson. Coach Sims? I request my work to be spread across the journal, and let's celebrate our 6A football team.
Without objection, so ordered. Introductions of bills and concurrent resolutions. The clerk will read.
House Bill number 2626 by the Committee on Local Government and Act concerning taxation. House Bill number 2627 by the Committee on Local Government and Act concerning elections, dealing with cities and counties and regulation of temporary signs. House Bill number 2628 by the Committee on Local Government and Act concerning airport authorities. House Bill number 2629 by the Committee on Local Government and Act concerning consumer protection and common interest communities. House Bill number 2630 by the Committee on Judiciary and Act concerning the Kansas Family Law Code related to child custody, residency, and parenting time, consideration of domestic abuse. House Bill number 2631 by the Committee on Judiciary and Act concerning investigations of abuse, neglect, or exploitation of certain individuals, clarifying when reports of abuse, neglect, or exploitation shall be sent to both the Department for Children and Families and the appropriate law enforcement agency. House Bill number 2632 by the Committee on Transportation and Act regulating traffic and Act concerning escort vehicles annual registration. House Bill number 2633 by Representative Parker and Act concerning the Secretary of State requiring nonpartisan elections prohibiting certain political activities. House Bill number 2634 by the Committee on General Government Budget and Act concerning the Kansas State Police Healthcare Commission providing a payroll reduction for indemnity insurance. House Bill number 2635 by the Committee on K-12 Education Budget and Act concerning education related to instruction and financing thereof related to the Kansas School Equity and Enhancement Act. House Bill number 2636 by the Committee on K-12 Education Budget and Act concerning school districts related to general obligation bonds related to State Board of Education approval. House Bill number 2637 by the Committee on Veterans and Military and Act concerning veterans related to the Uniform Consumer Credit Code, enacting the Kansas Veterans Loan Act, establishing the Kansas Veterans Loan Act. House Bill number 2638 by the Committee on Education and Act concerning post-secondary education relating to gifts, grants, and donations, and the disclosure thereof. House Bill number 2639 by the Committee on Children and Seniors and Act concerning child care facilities relating to individuals maintaining, residing, working, or regularly volunteering in a child care facility. House Bill number 2640 by the Committee on Water and Environment and Act concerning the State Corporation Commission relating to representation to regional transmission organizations. House Bill number 2641 by the Committee on Water and Environment and Act concerning oil and gas relating to the State Corporation Commission powers and duties, requirements for certain injection wells. House Bill number 2642 by Representative Esau and Act concerning campaign finance related with corrupt political advertising. House Concurrent Resolution number 5023 by Representatives Rodman, Hyman, and Ward. A concurrent resolution providing for a joint session of the Senate and House Representatives for the purpose of hearing a message from the Governor. It was resolved by the House Representatives, State of Kansas, Senate concurring memorandum that the Senate and the House Representatives meet in joint session in Representative Hall at 2:45 on February 7, 2018 for the purpose of hearing a message from the Governor. Be it further resolved that a committee of 2 members from the Senate and 3 members from the House of Representatives be appointed to wait upon the Governor.
Motion to adopt resolution. Majority Leader Hyman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move adoption of House Concurrent Resolution 5023.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Resolution is adopted. Speaker announcement. Representative Richard Pratt. Speaker announcements for escorts. To escort the governor, Representative Auerkamp, Markley, and Wynn. To escort the Supreme Court, Representative Nostromi, Dirks, and Keither. To escort the Senate, Representatives Hauser, Hubert, and Finney. Message from the governor, the clerk will read.
February 5th, 2018, enclosed herewith is Executive Order Number 1804 for the information and concern of the policy regarding sexual harassment. Jeff Collier, Governor.
HB 2474 appears on the consent calendar for the second day. Is there objection? Seeing none, it will remain on the consent calendar for the third day. House Bill 2547 appears on the consent calendar for the second day. Is there objection? Seeing none, it will remain on the consent calendar for the third day. Chair recognizes Majority Leader Heineman to resolve into the Committee of the Whole.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the House resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for the purpose of considering those items under the heading of General Orders.
You've heard the motion. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Motion carried. The Chair appoints Representative Hawkins to chair the Committee of the Whole.
Good morning. The first order of business is House Bill 2470. For the purposes of carrying House Bill 2470, the chair recognizes Representative Auerkamp.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, there were committee amendments. I move the adoption of the committee report.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor of adoption of the committee report, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. You may proceed.
House Bill 2470 allows for contract brewing between microbreweries. Contract brewing will allow one microbrewery to make and package beer or hard cider for another microbrewery. Kansas microbrewery laws only allow activities that are specifically mentioned in statutes. If an activity is not mentioned in statutes, then it's not allowed. Contract brewing is not mentioned in statutes, therefore it is not allowed. Early last year, an owner of a microbrewery up in Holton, Kansas asked me to introduce a bill to modify state statutes to allow contract brewing. He believes that contract brewing would help his business, as well as many other microbreweries in Kansas. So we worked together on the language. We worked with the Kansas ABC division and also others in the industry to craft the bill. In the committee, there was no opposition. And the amendments that we did have in committee were just technical. Contract brewing, it is practiced throughout several other states in our country. It's not a new concept. Some details on the bill. The contract brewer, the one making the beer or the hard cider, is allowed to return the beer or hard cider to the original contracting microbrewery. A microbrewery may make beer or hard cider for another microbrewery located inside or outside of Kansas. The contract microbrewery is responsible for complying with all federal and state laws dealing with manufacturing beer, hard cider, including labeling laws, and shall be responsible for the payment of all federal and state taxes on the beer and hard cider. And also both the contracting brewery and the contract brewer must count the barrels brewed or made as part of their annual production limit, which is 60,000 barrels of beer or 100,000 barrels of hard cider. With that, Mr. Chairman, I stand for questions.
Does anyone desire to speak to the bill? The chair recognizes Representative Luis Weinbach.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative, will you please stand for a question? Now, just kind of walk me through this bill. If I'm an outside brewer, microbrewer, I want to sell my beverages in Kansas, I have to have an in-state brewery that I contract with to manufacture that or brew that for me. Is that my understanding of this bill?
Yes, if by outside, you mean outside the state of Kansas.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, and then once I contract you to manufacture or brew this for me, you can send it back out of states for me to sell it in my state. Is that part of this bill?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you, Representative. Representative did a good job of explaining this bill. I was a little bit confused when we heard it. He did a good job. I urge your support. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The chair recognizes Representative Hodge of Harvey County.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I believe I've offered an amendment to this good bill already. For the carrier of the bill, stand for questions. Did you mention that this bill discusses some things in 41308B sub D? We're talking about 50% of the products utilized in the manufacture of domestic beer by a microbrewery shall be grown in Kansas. Is that right?
Where are you at?
41308B. Sub B.
Okay.
I believe that's the section you're actually amending, isn't it, right? And you've moved it to C now, right?
Yes.
Okay. And in your version it says 30%, is that right?
That is correct, and that is for the manufactured hard cider.
Great. So, and it depends on, there's a fee for this as well, is that right?
A fee for what?
For manufacturing beer or hard cider in a local brewery, is that right?
There are probably fees throughout the process.
Is that located here in 41310?
If you give me time to review it, I'm happy to do that. So yes, there are fees involved with running a microbrewery.
Thank you, Representative. And so, would you think that it would be a decent idea if everybody would use Kansas product to get a break on those fees?
Is it a decent idea? Sure, but there's a lot of details that would have to be looked at.
Sure. And I'm not looking at all those extra details. I'm just saying, and my amendment would say if you use 70% of Kansas products, you get half the fee waived. If you use 100% of Kansas products, you get all the fee waived. And I'm saying this just because, Bonnie, I drive up here from Newton, I see mountains of wheat covered up by tarps, and I think we can just do some value-added work there. So with that, I offer my amendment.
The bill appears short for the clerk to read. Or read the amendment appears short. The clerk will read.
Page 2, line 21 after the second of by inserting here and, line 25 after domestic by inserting here and, also in line 25 after the period by inserting if at least 70% but not 100% of the products utilized in the manufacture of beer and hard cider by a microbrewery are grown in Kansas, then the license fee for such microbrewery imposed under KSA 41-310 and amendments thereto for the immediately succeeding license period shall be 1/2 of the amount set forth in KSA 41-310 and amendments thereto. If 100% of the products utilized in the manufacture of beer and hard cider by a microbrewery are grown in Kansas, then the license fees for such microbrewery imposed under KSA 41-310 and amendments thereto shall be waived for the immediate succeeding license period.
Representative, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This bill does a very simple thing. If we use Kansas products like Kansas wheat, Kansas apples, Kansas anything, then you get a reduction in the fee. If you use 70% Kansas products, it's a reduction in half in the fees. If you use 100% Kansas products, such as Kansas wheat and wheat beer, then you can have the entire fee waived. That's all this bill does. Like I said before, when you drive up from wherever you're at in Kansas, the prices of the grain are down, and I would like to have some value added to this to wheat right now, and this is one way to do that. So, without further ado, I move my amendment. I stand for questions too.
On the amendment, the chair recognizes Representative Pittman of Leavenworth.
If you'd stand for questions.
I will.
Do you think this fee waiver will be enough to incentivize these brewers to use these Kansas products?
It could. If I, let me look at that, those fee schedules. If you're only making less than 100 barrels a day, it's a $200 fee. If it's less than 150, it's $400. We'll move all the way up to 500, it's a $1,600 fee. So yeah, I think it could incentivize that startup business in their garage to do this or in their basement. I don't know if people will drink the beer, but that's a different question.
Not a concern. So we're both decreasing the fees overall in the state of Kansas, and we're using and incentivizing use of Kansas products.
Absolutely, that's it.
I stand in support of this amendment.
On the amendment, the chair recognizes Representative Parker of Dickinson County.
With the carrier stand.
Sure.
We have a committee process. Did you bring this into the committee when we had the hearing on the bill?
Let me explain the origination of this. I was working out one morning, Representative, and my friend said, why not have an incentive for folks to have Kansas products, Kansas wheat beer? And I thought, that's a good idea. I wonder where that could go. The next day we had general orders on this very bill. And given the time frame, no, did not go into the committee process. But I think that this thing wouldn't really give anybody any heartburn.
Thank you. Well, obviously you didn't see me looking out with you.
No, where were you?
I pass it out. But anyways, so and you know what the effect will have on ABC's budget, because that's what the fees go to.
In my opinion, I think it will be negligible because these are folks that are going to be using Kansas product, paying taxes on Kansas product, and so I believe it will be an offset if at best.
Thank you. Whether or not this is a good amendment, I don't know. It didn't go through the committee process. I would like to know what impact it would have on ABC. I would like to know, I always like to see the market find its own levels. You know, we've got grain sitting on the field, okay, we've got wheat sitting on the field. I know I grow wheat, but eventually it does sell. It goes up, it goes down, that's what markets do. I would like to consider this a friendly amendment, but I can't, because it hasn't went through the process. I don't know what the impact is. I would like to know. So with that, Mr. Chair, I will oppose the amendment. Thank you.
The chair recognizes Representative Williams of Butler County.
Okay, I have a question for the carrier. Questions, I should say. We have a population of around 2.8 million in Kansas, something like that, correct?
I believe you're right.
So if our population of the U.S. is 350 million, we subtract that, and the population of the world is, what, 7 billion? Something like that?
We've just gone over 7 billion people.
All right, so my question would this policy change potentially confine our 2.8 million Kansans and potentially hurt their desire to export outside our very small populated state? Because a precedent that might be established here in Kansas that might cause a wave of precedent in other states that perhaps retaliate or respond by excluding our residents and our sellers from having the same type of treatment in states outside of Kansas.
Are you asking whether or not this good idea will take flame and go all over the country?
Actually, I'm asking you if you believe this could potentially jeopardize Kansans that would like to export outside of our state.
Doubtful, highly doubtful.
So you think that Kansas would potentially establish this and no other state would jump on this potential bandwagon?
I'm a little unsure of your question, but I don't think it's going to have the negative effects that you're alluding to. All this bill does is allows startups and folks that are subject to this fee to be incentivized to use all the wheat on the ground, make wheat beer, make whatever they need to out of it, and get a small break from these fees.
Okay, I totally understand what your objective is, but it's the consequences that I'm concerned about. Would you think that this could potentially reduce competition?
No.
Okay, and would you think that this could set precedents in terms of other Kansas or providing favorability for bid processes for only Kansas companies? We've gone down that road before.
I think you're overthinking it. All this has to do with is the hard cider and beer fees associated with microbreweries. Going on to other topics of which I don't even know what you're talking about, but other things, I'm not sure that's where this bill or any other bill could go.
Okay, thank you very much. So actually, my point is that the things that we do in here do affect other policies, other areas. They happen to affect other things all the time. When we establish precedent, it can easily be used in other areas. Last year, I believe we discussed a bill in which it involved transportation, bid processes, and whether or not we allow certain Kansas contractors advantage over out-of-state contractors. I'm only suggesting that perhaps by carving this out and giving preference for one industry within our state is bad precedent and bad policy. I will be opposing this bill, or this amendment. Thank you.
The chair recognizes Representative Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just 2 points. From a business perspective, in my opinion, just in my day job, when I'm not here in Topeka, I get to work with a lot of businesses across the country. Not once have I heard a business say they wanted something from the government. Most of the businesses, or all of them, when I talk to them and the startups, they want a simple, honest government without the complexity of, I think, a lot of laws that may have good intentions, but the net effect is negligible or just adds more burden on business owners. The fees here are minimal. The additional paperwork that this would put on the businesses is probably greatly outweighs And so the overall complexity that this adds to the bill is I think, unnecessary and not helpful. The other point, we're working with the ABC division on this bill, being a tremendous amount of respect for the director there. She's putting a tremendous effort into organizing and simplifying a lot of our alcohol laws. And I think this goes the opposite direction, just adding unnecessary complexity. Therefore, I ask that you oppose the amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The chair recognizes Representative Crum of Sedgwick.
Bring on the amendment, answer a couple of questions real quick.
Good morning.
Morning. So, your amendment, people can still buy their products from other states if they want, correct?
Yes.
If they buy them from another state or other location, country even, is there a penalty?
No.
So the fee schedule stays exactly the same, you're just rebating some money if they're using Kansas products?
Absolutely.
So there's really no penalty if they choose to, if they're doing so now, going out to other states and getting things from other states, there's absolutely no penalty, they just pay exactly what they're paying now.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I would stand in support of this amendment.
The chair recognizes Representative Cox of Johnson County.
Would the chair of the amendment stand for questions? What was the fiscal note on this bill?
There is no fiscal note on this bill. It should be a very negligible amount. If you can look here at the fee levels, you can see that it should not be a very damaging bill.
What did the Microbrewery Association say when you spoke to them about
I
this?
did not speak to the Microbrewery Association. I did speak to many people that have wanted to be in the microbrewery business and have not wanted to do this because of the fees.
What did the Department of Revenue say about implementing this? What would impact on that be?
Well, I told you there's no fiscal note. I decided to talk to.
And the impact on the ABC?
I didn't speak to that. That's been asked.
Thank you. I don't disagree with what this amendment is trying to do. I actually generally like it, but we have a committee process, and you hear throughout the entire year people talk about the process matters, the process is important, accountability, transparency, and right now we don't have that with this. That's one of the major issues we're going with. There's the key stakeholders in this have not been discussed. A public hearing has not been held for feedback on this. We don't know the fiscal impact, though I agree it's probably small. We don't know what it actually is. We don't know what it's going to impact ABC. We don't know how the Microbrewery Association feels about this. And additionally, if we were past certain deadlines, I would be more supportive in the sense saying, you know, we don't have time for hearing, but Fed and State, which dealt with this, is an exempt committee. This bill can still be generated and introduced into Fed and State and given a hearing, go through the full process that so many of us ask for, that our constituents ask for that transparency. So I stand in opposition, not because I disagree with the contents of the bill, but because we're not giving a transparent, full process that people have continuously been asking us for. Thank you.
The chair recognizes Representative Hyman of Lane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I raise wheat. So as a wheat grower, I appreciate the intent of this bill to help get rid of those big piles of wheat out of the country. That would be a help because we're not making a lot of money selling wheat right now. But I also have a natural aversion to government getting involved in the markets. And that's what I believe this is. And when government gets involved in the markets, they rarely get it right, and there are usually unintended consequences. So I would prefer that we not go down this road and trust the market to efficiently allocate resources and commodities where they're best used. So while I'm a wheat grower, I also consume craft beer from time to time. And from that side of the equation, I get concerned about cost of the next IPA I consume. I get concerned about the quality of that IPA I consume. But I trust the maker of that IPA to know where best to source his commodity that he uses to make his beer. If it's in state, great, and I assume he's already doing that. But if he has to go outside the state to find the wheat or the other raw materials that he needs to make the beer, because it meets the specs he has to have for that IPA, then I want him to use that product instead of Kansas-grown product. So again, I'm led back to that same conclusion, trust the market. We don't need the government involved. I'll be voting no. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, Representative Hodge, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We've heard a little bit about not going through the process. Well, this is part of the process. We are on the House floor. This bill has not gone through the Senate. When it gets to the Senate, you'll get the chance for a fiscal note. You'll get a chance to also have the public hearing, to have the industry come in and talk whether or not this would be a good idea. All this bill does, folks, is it allows us to have Kansas products first. And we are in a situation right now where our prices are low. They need to be given some value added to them, as opposed to this driving by and just looking at something under a tarp. We could be using those products and getting a break in our fees. It is a negligible cost. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I move my amendment.
You have heard the motion by Representative Hodge to amend House Bill 2470. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay? No. The chair is in down. The clerk will open a roll and you may vote. Seeing 15 hands, the roll call is in order. Has every member had an opportunity to vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member wish to change their vote? $37 voting yea and 80 voting nay. The amendment fails. We are back on the bill. The clerk will record the vote. The chair recognizes Representative Fraunfelter of Wyandotte County.
I'd ask to carry the bill. A couple questions. Yes, you know, I've had a rough year. My memory's not the best in the world. But microbreweries and cider, hard cider, who makes that? Who are the ones that make it? Are they restaurants? Are they independent people? Who's making this? I'm not mistaken.
These are businesses that have applied for and received a license for the Division of ABC to be a microbrewery in Kansas.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't know, this has come around last year about raising the gallons for restaurants who are microbrewers. Now we're selling it, if I'm not mistaken, I think we're going to sell it across the state line. And I think, are we infringing, my next question, are we infringing upon any federal laws? Because now you're a restaurant that is exporting beer across the state line. I don't know, if you can't charge sales tax because you don't have to charge them across the state line. So we're not getting sales tax out of it. And my question is there going to be some problems with that? So I don't know, I think that it needs to be rethought. 'Cause I think we might be stepping on some laws that we don't like when we start doing it, because they are restaurants too. They're not independent breweries like that, some of them, they are restaurants. So they fall under a different guideline. The other thing is, we've had a number of people come down here and talk, and like I said, my memory's not the best in the world these days, but I remember some things called PEAK, HPIP, Star Bonds, and machinery equipment, which most of our farmers should remember, because that allowed, that machinery equipment allowed farmers, railroads, and manufacturers not to pay any sales tax. So that was the government getting in their business then. I guess it only counts when it's good, I guess, for that. So we need to rethink before we come down here and talk about how government gets in everybody's business, because we sure help them out a lot with that sales tax. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on the bill? Seeing none, Representative Meyerkamp, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All the taxes, the question about taxes, just working extensively with a few people in the alcohol industry in Kansas to work with microbreweries, the division of ABC, asked multiple times if there's any concerns about all the taxes and fees with contract brewing. Every single time the response was no. We can oversee this and we can make sure it's done properly. There is no concern from the division of ABC. Also, obviously, they all have to comply with federal and state laws. That's all already in there. So I think the tax concern is not a concern. So on that, just allowing contract brewing, it'll modify our laws to reflect existing and emerging needs in the microbrewery industry, and also allows Kansas microbreweries to have opportunities similar to microbreweries in other states. So I ask for your support for House Bill 2470, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the committee rises and reports, it reports HB 2470 favorably for passage.
You have heard the motion by Representative Meyerkamp to report House Bill 2470 favorably. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Motion passes. This concludes our general orders. The chair recognizes the majority leader, Representative Hyman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move we rise and report.
You have heard the motion to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The motion passes.
Clerk will read the committee report.
Mr. Speaker, your committee of the whole recommends House Bill 2470 be passed as amended.
Representative Hawkins.
Mr. Speaker, I move we rise and report.
You've heard the motion. All in favor, say aye.
I move we adopt the committee report.
You've heard the motion. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. The committee report is adopted. Reports of standing committee, the clerk will read.
Committee on Government Technology and Security recommends House Bill 2556 be amended by substituting a new bill to be designated as substitute for House Bill number 2556, an act concerning emergency communication services, establishing a state interoperability advisory committee, and the substitute bill be passed. Committee on Federal State Affairs recommends Senate Bill 262 be passed. Committee on Elections recommends House Bill 2539 be reported without recommendation. Committee on Financial Institutions and Pensions recommends House Bill 2444 be passed. Committee on Financial Institutions and Pensions recommends House Bill 2448 be amended, and the bill be passed as amended. Committee on Education recommends House Bill 2542 be passed. Committee on Veterans and Military recommends House Bill 2464 be amended, and the bill be passed as amended.
This is a reminder that we will meet in joint session. I'll finish the announcement. This is a reminder that we will meet in joint session with the Senate tomorrow afternoon at 2:45 to hear the address from the governor. The gallery will have open seating. Tickets or special identification are not needed. Please remember to invite your senator to sit with you for the joint address tomorrow afternoon and inform the Sergeant at Arms if you need a chair for your senator. Introduction of bills. Is there objection? Return to order of business. Seeing none, the clerk will read it.
House Bill number 2643 by the Committee on Higher Education Budget, and Act concerning post-secondary education relating to residency for purposes of tuition and fees relating to Kansas Foster Child Educational Assistance Act, requiring tuition differences to be applied to such act. House Bill number 2644 by the Committee on Higher Education Budget, and Act concerning state finances relating to program service inventory, integrated budget fiscal process, performance-based budgeting system, post-secondary educational institutions. House Bill number 2645 by the Committee on Federal and State Affairs, and Act concerning courts relating to district magistrate judges' positions. House Bill number 2646 by Representatives Bishop and Hodge, and Act concerning motor vehicle liability insurance, increasing the minimum policy limit for bodily injury on certain persons. House Bill number 2647 by Representative Parker, and Act concerning employment relating to local government control over wage benefit and leave policies with respect to private employers. House Bill number 2648 by the Committee on Corrections and Juvenile Justice, and Act concerning crimes, punishment, criminal procedure relating to assault, battery, definition of law enforcement officer. House Bill number 2649 by Representative Dove, an act relating to agriculture, enacting the Industrial Hemp Pilot Program, powers, duties, and responsibilities of the Secretary of Agriculture, licenses and licensing. House Bill number 2650 by the Committee on Federal and State Affairs, and Act designating the state rock as limestone, the state mineral as galena, and the state gemstone as gelinite emerald. House Bill number 2651 by the Committee on Federal and State Affairs, and Act concerning agriculture relating to poultry processing facilities and poultry slaughtering facilities, providing for the establishment thereof and accounting. House Bill number 2652 by the Committee on Federal and State Affairs, and Act concerning agriculture relating to poultry confinement facilities, providing for the establishment thereof and accounting.
Other announcements? Representative Richard Prill is appointed to serve as Vice Chair of the Appropriations Committee. Representative Stephen Johnson is appointed to serve on the ks.gov Education Budget Committee, and thus is removed from membership of the Agricultural and Natural Resource Budget Committee. Representative Brad Ralph replaces Representative Fred Patton as Vice Chair of the District Committee. Representative Patton remains a member of the committee. With his appointment yesterday to the Appropriations, Representative Fred Patton is removed from his membership on Financial Institutions and Pensions and Insurance Committee. Representative Becker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A quick announcement concerning the Rural Caucus. The Rural Caucus will meet tomorrow, Wednesday, immediately following the session. We will give an update on agricultural economy from KSU Ag Economist Professor Featherstone, and our host will be Kansas Farm Bureau. Tomorrow, immediately following session, 159 South. Thank you. Thank you.
Representative Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Upon adjournment, Congressional Prayer Caucus will meet at 251 South, Lieutenant Governor's Conference Room. Thank you.
Representative Garber.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Capital Bible Study is tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock in room 142 South. We're discussing faith in God's promises, Romans chapter 4.
Representative Ballard.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Democrats' first termers, we will have a very short meeting from 12 to 12:30 in room 218 North, and we will have a Thursday summit this Thursday. Thank you.
Representative Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a reminder to the members of the Commerce, Labor, and Economic Development Committee and other interested parties, the meeting for today, 1:30, has been canceled. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Lutz.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, body. We have had a sharp increase in the number of earthquakes in Kansas in recent years, and these man-made earthquakes are causing damages to homeowners, businesses, and government buildings with little to no accountability, shared responsibility, or compensation. Representative Good and myself have 2 bills which will help. And we have sent an email to all of you, and please check them out and give your consideration to possibly co-signing the legislation. And if you're interested, you can sign up at Representative Good's office at 168 West, or my office, which is in the basement, 54 South. Thank you.
Representative Kincannon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Republicans, we will caucus tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. in the old Supreme Court room. The topic will be Dr. Greg Lakin speaking to us about opioids and other illegal substances and what's going on over at KVHE on those topics. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Whipple.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the Democratic Caucus, we will have agenda tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. Tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. in our normal room. Thank you again, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Vickers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On your desk, I left an inviting you tomorrow for coffee and donuts. Tomorrow's Native American Legislative Day here in Kansas. Our tribal leaders will be here, and the coffee and donuts is sponsored by the Sacapunks Nation of Kansas. It is from 7:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. Ground floor hallway. And also tomorrow, South Central Delegation, don't forget we have lunch and a meeting, room 152 South. Thank you.
Representative Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the Wyandotte County and Leavenworth County delegations, we will be having lunch today in room 152 South, so hope you all will join us. Thank you.
Representative Patton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. While this place may feel like a zoo sometimes, tonight you actually have a chance to go to the zoo. All of the accredited zoos in Kansas are hosting a reception for us from 5:30 to 8. You can feed lorikeets, feed giraffes, play with porcupines, and see the tigers. So come check it out. Thank you.
Representative Schrader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't intend to do this each time the Ag and Natural Resource Budget Committee meets, but I thought it would today. Just let you know that we are planning to meet today at 1:30 and 142 South. We're hearing the ag budget today, so it's pretty important for you to be there. And so hope you can make it to our somewhat slimmed down committee. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Clayton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a reminder to members of the Johnson County delegation, we have delegation lunch tomorrow in room 144 South. Our speaker and sponsor will be Waste Management. The Senate Chair has requested RSVPs of regrets only to be sent to her office, so if you're unable to attend, please remind her of that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
If there are no further announcements, the Chair recognizes the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Republicans, we will have calendar review in the morning in the old Supreme Court room immediately following caucus. We'll try to coordinate between the 2 meetings, make sure we fit all of it in. But following caucus in the old Supreme Court room. Mr. Speaker, I move the House adjourn until Wednesday, February 7th, 11 a.m.
You've heard the motion. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. We are adjourned.
Join us.